Today we're looking all at the topic of friendship. And from secondary school until uni, and even now, I've always said that I've got quite a small number of close friends. But I was often one of those guys who knew a lot of people. And I had some friends who would get annoyed at me when we were walking through town or through campus, because we'd be walking down the road and we'll bump into someone I know, we'll say hi, and then they would always tease me, like, oh, look at you, Mr. Popular. And I'd roll my eyes, and I'd be like, no, 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 that's not true. And then 10 steps later, someone else is waving, and they know, they roll their eyes at me, I have to stop, say hi. But the truth is about this, I was never really any of these people's friends. Like, I'm a very friendly person. I love a good conversation. So we probably had a lot of surface level chats. And I might know their name, but that's no guarantee. But we weren't really friends. Maybe acquaintances at best, but again, no guarantee. And back in the day of Facebook, when that was a thing, you used to compare friends with one another, but that was never really an accurate number because half the people you might have met at a party or a night out, and the rest of them are friends who you met once, but now you're stuck getting updates on their lives that you just really don't care about. But social media, such as Facebook and Instagram, they give us this illusion of friendship. I can know what someone had for breakfast, or what new coffee shop they're going to be trying out later today, or what concert they might be going to. I can react and reply to their story, and yet I might not have actually spoken to this person in years. And I'm also following someone on Instagram who they're trying to do a 100 kg bench press in 100 days, and we're 60 days in, and I'm so invested. We're almost there. But I have never met this person in my life. And yes, it can be a great tool for helping to connect with those around us. My sister, she lives in America with my nieces, my nephews, and her husband. And my brother-in-law lives in Australia. So we get the updates on their life, and it's great. It's wonderful. But I think it speaks to a deeper truth, that we're all desperate and longing for connection. And friendship and connection, they matter, and yet the World Health Organization reported in 2025 that 1 in 6 people worldwide are affected by loneliness. The Director General of WHO said in this report, in an age when the possibilities to connect are endless, more and more people are finding themselves isolated and lonely. Now, there are around 800 people who call Penny Lane Church their home, so 1 in 6 of us is around 133 people that feel lonely and isolated at any given time. That's near enough how many people are in this room right now. And I know at some point all of us have probably felt like that. I know I sure have. But there's something within us that wants to fight against this feeling. Back in 2020, a couple days before we went into lockdown, I went to Scarborough with Beth, my wife, who was, at that point was my fiancée, and we thought we'd do lockdown with her family. They had a spare room for me. It beat staying by myself in Liverpool. And, it's only going to be 3 weeks. It's going to be like a nice little mini holiday. It will be great. Boy, was I wrong. 3 months later, I'm still living in Scarborough. And it was lovely, had a great time, but didn't expect to be there that long. But every week, when it got to 8 o'clock on a Thursday, Beth's mom, Jackie, was adamant that we go outside so we can clap for the NHS. What was meant to be a one-off thing to show our appreciation for all the amazing work that they've been doing, it quickly became a weekly thing. Now, admittedly, the rest of us couldn't be bothered to go out every week, so we went from clapping at the door to clapping at the sofa to just raising a glass to Beth's parents because they work for the NHS. But every week, off Jackie went to go and clap for the NHS. But I think at the heart of this weekly tradition, it wasn't just a national symbol of our appreciation. I think it was a cry for connection. Not just from Jackie, but from everyone around the country. We knew it was a time where we could go and meet our neighbors, have that connection, that catch-up about what's actually going on in their lives, and we couldn't do that in a normal way. And we all seek this connection in different ways, whether it's through social media, whether it's through dating, perhaps it's joining sports clubs or some other group, or coming to church. And these things, they aren't bad. It's not wrong to look for those connections. We're not weird or a bit sad for longing for it. In fact, we're made for community. In the book of Genesis, we're told that God created the heavens and the earth. He created the world and put trees in it, and animals and birds and fishes, and it was good. He created man and all of creation, and he said, it is very good. But then we get to chapter 2, and we see for the very first time, God says something is not good. And we haven't got to the part where Adam and Eve have eaten from the tree yet, so it's not sin. But what we see in Genesis 2:18, the Lord God said, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." From the very beginning of creation, woven into the fabric of our created being, we see that we aren't made to be alone. But God has something better in store for us. In Ecclesiastes 4, verses 9 to 12, it says, "Two are better than one because they have good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken." I know this is a popular verse that's often read out of weddings. It wasn't actually referring to romantic partners here. The verse just before is talking about seeing a man all alone who has no son or brother. Though he has wealth, he has no enjoyment because there's no one to share it with. And this is a terrible thing. God thinks community is a good idea. We're not meant to be isolated from one another, but we are better together. And friendship takes us deeper. It goes from just seeing what's happening in people's lives, being in the general vicinity or just stalking them on Instagram, but to coming alongside one another, stepping into each other's lives. So today we're asking the question, what does the Bible have to say about friendship? What wisdom or advice might it give on how to choose friends, how to be good friends, and how does the gospel story impact how we should do life together? When we look at the life of Jesus, we see that he came as God in human form. He had a mission to restore the broken relationship that humanity and all of creation have with God because of sin. And now he could have come and just been a good teacher. Yes, have disciples, people who follow him around so they can learn from him. But he could still keep them at a distance. And he could go to the cross and die for our sins, rise and raise again, and that would be amazing. We would have the right teachings, we would have the sacrifice be made, and that would be a great job. But that's not what Jesus did. Jesus said he came so that we can have life in all of its fullness. And a part of that fullness is relationship with God and with one another. You see, friendship matters to Jesus. And he showed us that being human means to have people close to us so that we can do life together. Throughout Jesus' ministry, even though there were many people following him around throughout those 3 years, he still had a closer circle of 12 friends that he did life with more intimately. And even within that 12, there were a chosen 3, a select 3, Peter, James, and John, who were even closer to him, that inner circle that had direct access to him. It was a place where he could be more vulnerable, he could be honest with them, where he could share how he was truly feeling. And these disciples, they weren't just hearing his teaching, but experiencing it, seeing it lived out in the day-to-day, learning not just from what he says, but what he did as well. And in John 15, Jesus says, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for a friend. You're my friends if you do what I command. And in verse 15, he says, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know what his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends, for everything that I've learned from my Father, I have made known to you. Jesus invites them into a deeper relationship with him, not treating them as servants who simply carry out their master's bidding and not understanding why. Yes, there is still a call to obedience, but there is a deeper level of intimacy and vulnerability and knowledge of God that he's inviting them into. And it's a relationship that every single one of us is invited into too. He demonstrates what ultimate love looks like by dying on the cross. He calls us back to him, showing us how to live. And yes, we've messed up. And you might feel like you aren't good enough to be loved. And even in a room full of people, you might feel so lonely right now. But please hear this. Jesus cares about every single one of you. And he still would have come and died for you if you were the only person in this world, because he doesn't want to live a life separated from us. And he offers you not just forgiveness, but friendship, to be fully known and to be fully loved. And that is a friendship that every other friendship is built on. This is a template that we should be using, because once we are so secure in our relationship with Jesus, Then we can learn to love others without the need to perform or to pretend. Our goal then becomes not our own satisfaction, but how can I love others more and help point them to Jesus so that they too can be fully known and fully loved? So how do we do that? How do we go about creating these spaces for deep, meaningful friendship? Well, the first thing to remember is that friends shape us. A saying my parents used to say to me all the time, and it would drive me crazy, was, show me who your friends are, and I will tell you who you are. And I used to hate it because I would always try and argue that I'm my own person, I'm unique, and so I'm not exactly like my friends, and that is true. But they would also say it to me when I've probably been messing about and I've got in trouble, and they're saying these things because I've been with some friends who got me into trouble. But the reality is we are very much shaped by the people that we hang around with. We're influenced by those, especially who we admire or we look to for belonging. From the way that we think, the way that we act, the way that we speak, the habits that we pick up, the good and the bad. From the way that we dress. A few years ago, everyone was wearing Lucy and Yak, and then it became Birkenstocks, and I always wonder what the next thing is going to be. I'm hoping that it's cheap and it has lots of pockets, because for some reason I love pockets, so please make that happen, guys. But Jim Rohn, a motivational speaker and entrepreneur, he says, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So think about who those 5 people are in your life, and then just put them together, and that's you. How'd you like that image? Happy with it? I'll let you decide. But I found out I was dyslexic about 5 years ago, and it really shed light onto why I hate reading so much. I just don't enjoy it as much as everyone else, so it seems. However, one of my New Year's resolutions this year is to read 10 books in 2026. That's one a month with a 2-month buffer, because you never know. But where on earth did that come from? Have I gone mad? Possibly. Or has a doppelganger come in and taken my place? Let's hope not. But on the staff team here at Penny Lane, every single one of them reads. They often talk about it, how much they're enjoying it. Beth, she reads loads as well. So at some point, this has clearly rubbed off on me, it's motivating me to want to read. And it seems to be working for some reason. I'm in 2 books, guys. We're ahead. But the Bible, especially in the book of Proverbs, it's full of advice and wisdom about the people that we have around us. Proverbs 12:26 says, the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers the harm. The writers of the Bible make a point of telling us how we should be intentional about the friends that we have around us. If we want to be living a godly life and becoming more like Jesus in our everyday, then are the people surrounding us modeling that? Are they helping us to develop good and healthy habits in life? Are the people around us living the kind of lifestyle that you want to lead? If you want to be physically fitter, you typically surround yourselves with people who are doing just that they prioritize their wellness. If you're going to pick a personal trainer in the gym, you want someone who actually works out, who's not out of shape, and they know what they're doing. They take care of their body. If you want to be more spiritually mature, or if you want a better spiritual life, be around people who are more spiritually mature. Those who don't just talk about their faith, but actually live it out in healthy and practical ways. How do they respond to disappointment and failure? How do they love and treat other people? Are they people who are willing to be corrected and grow and learn? Are they people who genuinely want to see more of God's will in their life and those around them? If you want to have a healthy marriage, whether you're married already or one day looking towards it, get around people who are actively working on their marriage, who celebrate their partner in public as well as private, not just talk bad about them behind their back, but honor them and are trying to make themselves a better partner too. If you want to be a better friend, then surround yourselves with those people who are trustworthy, who are loyal, who are honest, not just the ones who are fun to be around. The ones who notice when you're not there, not just notice when they need something from you. Pay attention to how they speak about others behind their back. How are they treating people? Are they people who encourage and are uplifting? Or do they spend their time putting people down? Are they patient, forgiving? Or do they give in to their anger? And the challenge for us in this is, whilst we're looking for that for ourselves, how can we be that friend for others? When people look at us, do they see someone who encourages them, who points them closer to Jesus and helps them to grow in their own character and their faith? Or do they see someone who drains them, who gossips or criticizes more than they support. And it's not just about being super spiritual who can't have fun and every word out of our mouth is a proverb. It's about being intentional in how we love and support and live alongside others. Are we the kind of person people can trust with their struggles? Or do we find ourselves getting pulled into the lunchtime gossip, complaining about the friends, or just trying to fit in by putting others down? Maybe it's scrolling through social media and comparing ourselves instead of celebrating their wins. And it's not about perfection, but it's about consistency and honesty. Secondly, friends challenge us. Proverbs 27:6 says, "Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses." Real friendship isn't just being okay with everything that our friends do, even though you might not agree with it. But it's about being able to directly speak into their lives, being able to challenge each other and hold each other accountable, pointing out where we might be going wrong in life. And the Bible describes them as wounds. Yes, they might hurt a little, but when given out of love, it's much better for us than those kisses which feel good and boost our ego in the short term, but do so much harm later down the line. Faithful friends are willing to have the hard conversations that we need to. And if I was walking around church and I had food in my teeth, I had snot hanging out my nose, I'd really hope that one of my friends, or anyone for that matter, would at least tell me before I got all the way onto this stage. The short and embarrassing conversation and the feelings that come up with that would be so much better than if I was to bring it up later and they were like, "Yeah, I saw that, but it would have been a bit awkward to have that conversation." You know, the hurt and the betrayal from that would hurt so much worse than feeling as if they would have told me. It doesn't feel very much like they love me in that moment, but they're just concerned about how they feel in the middle of it. Do we, friends, and are we willing to be friends that are able to have those hard conversations? When we see our friend that might be starting to drink a bit too much and it's leading into an unhealthy habit. They're jumping from partner to partner. They might be sleeping around. Are we willing to have those hard conversations? The unforgiveness in our hearts is just leading to toxic behavior and treating people badly. Are we willing to have those hard conversations? I had a handful of close friends, people who I'm sometimes nervous to have conversations with because I know that they're going to ask me questions on, well, how's your marriage going? You know, the things that you're struggling with, those temptations, how is that going? And I know that I'm going to have to be open and honest with them because that's the kind of friendship that we have, and vice versa. But these people aren't doing it to be nosy, but they genuinely want to see me doing well. They want the best for me, and as friends, we're here to encourage each other. When we might be walking astray, they're there to get us back on the right path. Not just sugarcoating things and allowing that bad behavior, but calling it out so we can do the right thing and come closer to Jesus. And it takes intentionality. So often we can hope that these conversations will just come up naturally, but they never do. Because these conversations, they're uncomfortable to have. And even several years down the line with a lot of my friendship, it's still uncomfortable to have some of these conversations. But it took having a direct conversation to say, hey, look, I want this friendship to be a space where we can do that, where we can challenge each other and be open and force those conversations sometimes if it's needed. Who are the people in your lives who can speak into it, who can hold us accountable? And are we creating spaces for that to happen? Here in Penny Lane, we have a thing called trios where you and two other friends, you get together and typically once a month, maybe more, but you have these kind of conversations. You commit to pray and to challenge one another, to come and share your struggles, whatever they may be. And I highly recommend it if you're not in one already. Be brave and ask those friends. They might just be waiting for you to ask them, so be intentional about it. And thirdly, friends support us. Friends are there in the good times, when we're celebrating, when we're on top of the world and all is well. But true friends are the ones who stick around when it all goes belly up. When life gets hard and it isn't all smiles and laughter. True friends are right there in the midst of it. In John 13, it's not long before Jesus is about to be arrested and taken to trial and then go on to be crucified. And in this moment, it could have been so easy for Jesus to just get so focused in, saying, right, I need to go and get ready to die on the cross. I don't have time for these guys anymore. I've taught them all I can. But right now, I've got a stressful few hours ahead of me, so I need to just get locked in. But again, this isn't what he does. We're told that instead, he loves them more. Instead of retreating to be alone, he chose to surround himself with his closest friends, the 12 disciples. He shares a meal with them. He serves them by washing their feet, even the feet of Judas, who is about to go on and betray them. He then takes them to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he simply asks them to be with him, to pray for him. He brings those three friends, Peter, James, and John, even further into the garden with him. And there he shares with them his pain and his troubles. He says to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." He isn't scared to be vulnerable with them, to present his true self, to tell them his worries and his suffering. He's asking them to be close to him in his lowest moment. And life is full of ups and downs, of wins and losses, but biblical friendship looks like coming alongside each other, lifting each other up in prayer when we don't have the words to say ourselves. It could be as simple as bringing a meal to a friend when they've gone through a horrible loss, or when life is just so much and they just can't think of what the next meal is going to be. It looks like sitting with them in the silence and just being okay with that. Or pointing them back to God when we don't know where to look and it's getting hard to see where he might be moving in our lives. How are we creating space to speak honestly and to be open with one another, where we can look past the smiles and the pretense and say, "I need help"? If we're honest, it can be a little scary. It's scary because real friendship means vulnerability. It means letting people in, and this can lead to hurt. It can lead to betrayal. And I had an epiphany about a year or two ago as I was sat chatting with my mom. And the reason why I didn't have many close friends, especially at that time, was because of the last year, or the last term of year 5. In my primary school, one of my best friends was a kid called Brandon. And I have fond memories of making up games on the playground. We would battle Beyblades in our desks, because we had the kind you could lift up, and it's just like a nice big cube. We were so cool. We had a lot of fun. But it was at this time, end of the second year of year 5, my mom had moved jobs. So it meant that her office was on the complete other side of Birmingham to where my school was. So school drop-off was a nightmare. So she was like, "I need to move schools." And I did not want to. I begged and I pleaded, and it did nothing, so I still had to move. What I remember on the last day, on our end-of-term party, I was sat on the desk with Brandon. I was drinking my orange juice cup and pouring my heart out to him whilst I was trying to hold back tears. Because we realized, I'm never going to see him again. We were in year 5, very dramatic. But I was like, I'm never going to see him again. Like, this is the worst thing ever. The 4 girls that I have a crush on in our year, never going to see them again. The rest of my friends in the whole school, never going to see them again. And this was the worst thing that could ever happen to any of us, really. But eventually, we got over it. We started dancing. We played with our Beyblades again, played some other games. We had a great time. But this left a little impression in little Andrew's mind. In the back of my mind, I realized because of this heartbreak, my logic became, I'm never letting anyone close again, because this is too painful and I never want to experience it again. And yes, I'll be my friendly, bubbly self. I'll still chat to people, but I'm never going to let anyone close because this hurts. This is not fun. And whilst I look back and I'm like, it felt like such a small thing, it shaped how I viewed friendship for years in my life. And it took a lot of work, a lot of God doing some work in my heart, a lot of counseling, a lot of having good and gentle and patient friends around me until I could really let people close in again. But I know that hurt comes sometimes when we let people close. They might betray our trust. They might lie to us. They cheat on us. They don't live up to the expectations that we have in our heads. On the one hand, we feel like we're protecting ourselves, but in reality, we're limiting ourselves. When I pushed people away, it just meant that when I got to a place of needing support, I was all alone and I didn't have anyone to lean on. Remember Ecclesiastes 4 at the beginning, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them fall down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. We aren't meant to go through life alone. We need one another. And Jesus, the most complete human that there was, someone who was betrayed by his closest friends, who was abandoned in his time of need, who was given up so that he could be killed. He knows what hurt looks like from friends. And yet he still thinks friendship is super important. And now this is not just me saying we have to lie down and let people walk over us. I think if people are doing that, they're not true friends. So we might want to take some distance from them. But we have to allow ourselves to be open, to allow people past the defenses that we put up, so that we can be genuine with them, so that we can grow together, loving sacrificially, picking each other up when we fall down, and pointing each other back to Jesus. Now, my home group has been a great space for this. And each time that we meet, we always end going around asking, what would everyone like prayer for? And something that I have loved seeing is that over time, as we've grown closer together, as community has been formed, what we're seeing is people not just sharing the kind of surface level prayers of, I just want to pray, I have a good week, and that would be great. But people are opening up and going deeper, sharing what's going on in their lives, the real struggles. Actually, I've got this driving test coming up, and actually there's a lot of anxiety that is within me because of that. I've lost my job, and it's really difficult, so I don't know what to do, and this is a real struggle. Actually, I just don't know where God is at the moment, and I'm just feeling this real lack of peace, and life is really hard. Please pray for me. But also on top of that, we're able to celebrate the wins. When we hear the answer to prayer, we can come alongside each other. We can celebrate. We can give thanks to God. And again, I can't recommend groups enough. If you're not in one, we're going to be relaunching our group soon. So go to penlanechurch.org/groups. Sign up. Be known in community. In such a large church, we can't know everyone, but we can know 10 or 12 or 15 people really well. Get stuck in. Get known. We need community, and we need deep friendship.